Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Reach versus Kal. This is Moletrap, actually. I am Moletrap. This game is Reach versus Kal, and this game is also the fourth game of Korean Air Force Ace versus STX Seoul. And this should be very exciting. We got a Protoss versus Protoss. Actually, a matchup that I kind of have a soft spot for in my heart. Deep down in the bowels of my heart. Does a heart have bowels? No, I don't think it does. That's kind of a disgusting thought anyway. Anyway, I like PvP a lot. Some of my favorite games have been Protoss versus Protoss, so even though it is a mirror matchup, it's not quite as dynamic as some other matchups. I like it a lot. You know, when I started watching pro gaming, Bisu was empowered. So I got into pro gaming relatively late, a couple years ago now. And so I was watching Bisu and I was watching Stork, and like the first like big epic, or maybe it was the second one. Yeah, I think the second or third big epic finals that I watched was Stork versus Bisu, Protoss versus Protoss, and those were just such awesome games. Just ridiculously awesome games, the MSL finals. So it was just a lot of fun. Anyway, I also just like Protoss versus Protoss because, you know, it's a mirror matchup, but unlike Zerg versus Zerg, it's a little bit less inclined to be decided by, you know, smaller things. But there's a little bit more logic to your build orders, and there's a little bit more as far as trying to weigh your build order versus what the other guy might be doing. And then also it's a little bit more interesting than Terran versus Terran. There's a little bit more options, I think, and it tends to not go as long. But it can go either way. Anyway, but the point of why I like Protoss versus Protoss is because it's like you can see both players do exactly the same thing, and most people think that's boring, but I think that's actually kind of interesting, because then it comes down to, you know, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again, you know, 12 goons in a Reaver and a shuttle versus 12 goons in a Reaver and a shuttle, and then it's just purely up to micro, and up to who actually has the superior skill in the game. And so basically it can be a sheer actual test of skill. Whereas, you know, in ZVZ, more often than not, it ends up where one player has an advantage through their build order, or in TVT, it's a lot more, you know, random, based on, you know, who gets Wraiths and who doesn't get Goliaths, and, you know, things like that. Who decides to get dropships first, who goes Vultures, and who goes Tanks and Goliaths. Anyway, so this is Reach versus Kal. Reach on the left, Kal on the right. Kal is actually one of my favorite Protoss players. He's a really, really smart player, very intelligent. He hasn't been doing terribly well lately. Now, of course, some people are probably going to be like, oh, he's won 6 of his last 7 games, or something like that. I haven't kept up with his stats, but I'm just kind of like my impression. I guess I can look up stats in the background here, but it's kind of my impression that, you know, he hasn't been doing completely well lately. I mean, he's been losing. He got out of the Star Leagues last season, for instance, is why I'm saying that. You know, he didn't do too much in the Star Leagues. He hasn't been doing terribly. His team hasn't been doing completely well in the Pro League. The STX has been doing really well compared to most teams, but they haven't been up there with, you know, CJ winning all their games and everything. Anyway, by the way, let's see. Reach is going to... Oh, crap. Reach is the teal Protoss at the 12 o'clock, and Kal is the green Protoss at the 6 o'clock. Oh, man. It is going to be difficult to figure out who is who in this match. So I'm sorry if ahead of time if I have difficulties with that. Anyway, so let's look at Kal's stats here real quick. Kal has been doing okay, but actually PvP is his worst matchup. I didn't even realize that. He's won his last couple PvPs, but he's just been basically going about even. He's 50% lifetime in PvP, and he's kind of about the same for the last 10 games, you know. Anyway, Reach on the other hand, he's, you know, he's been doing solid 50% play in Pro League this season, as I mentioned before, in one of the previous commentaries for this set, I think. Anyway, okay, they switched the colors. Sweet. So Kal is going to be red, and Reach is going to be yellow. So that's a lot easier to deal with. Sometimes when they think the colors are too similar, they switch it like that. Oh, she's sad about something. I think she seemed like it. She looked like she was frowning. Maybe not. Anyway, got probes passing in the middle. So far things exactly the same. You know, both players doing pretty much exactly the same build here, sending out their probes at exactly the same time as well, or almost exactly. Yeah, both players going Gateway, Assimilator. We'll have to see what happens next. Oftentimes in PvP, sometimes you'll see players will wait until they get a goon out, and they'll kill off that scouting probe. And wow, look at this. Both players putting down anti-manner pylons, which is you put down a pylon in a position where your probes can get around it, but it will also block the other probe from putting down a pylon, which is a manner pylon. Minor pylons are when they put a pylon in your supply line and it blocks your probes, traps them into. And there's actually a manner pylon right there. It's blocked a single probe into that mineral node, and it made it a lot more difficult to mine that mineral node on the other side. He's going to cancel it because he wasn't going to do too much good. But it's just a little thing that you could do to just disrupt their mining, and just cause them annoyance. And if you can trap like 2 probes and block like 2 mineral patches, then you know it can actually really be effective. It can really slow down their mining a lot and get you a significant advantage. But then you have to spend the 100 minerals to get that pylon down. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, and sometimes it can actually go against your favor.